again, welcome to our second annual Hall of Fame induction ceremonies. First order of business after this meal is to say thank you to the kitchen staff here at Post 5. Nice and loud so they can hear behind those closed doors. It is a real treat and an honor to host tonight's induction ceremony. I am also, quite frankly, humbled and I might add a bit intimidated to be addressing all of you up here this evening, because I am a stand-in for a young man that I mentioned a little while ago. It's driving force behind our Hall of Fame by the name of William Billy Holiday. One of my childhood heroes. And I might add, if I am allowed an editorial comment now and then, an athlete, a leader, and a difference maker who also, very soon, better be in our Hall of Fame. Most of all, I'm excited to be standing up here in front of our 10 newest Hall of Famers. What an awesome group we're going to celebrate this evening. So once again, with gusto, let's welcome and congratulate our Hall of Fame class of 2021. Congratulations. Before we present our inductees, I have a few thoughts and hopes that I've been asked to share with each of our inductees and with all of you. So bear with me for a few minutes. To start, I'm going to read you or recite to you an excerpt from a work of art that I hope you recognize. I will not sing it, I will recite it, and you are welcome to join in if you'd like. If I may. O'er the stands in royal purple, high school banners fly. Cheer on cheer like volleyed thunder, echo across the sky. Sound it over and over, then fight, fight, fight for the purple and the white. BHS forevermore. Thank you. How many of you recognize that? Well, as I thought, it is our school song, a bit of it. However, what I just noticed is that most of you don't recognize it. So why would I bring up such an old relic that only old guys like us remember? Because our school song deserves to have a very special place in our hearts and in our community today. Because local matters. Local history, local events, local culture, local institutions, local leaders now matter more than ever. Tonight we're celebrating you, our inductees, 10 very special heroes. Achievers like each of you don't happen by accident. You have been loved, you have been nurtured, you have been taught, you have been coached. And as we have often heard, it takes a village, an awesome local village, to raise champions in competition and in life, just like each of you. Brattleboro truly is a special village. BHS and its successor BUHS are pretty impressive too. Each of you are inspirational products of our historically accomplished community. In today's fractured nation, in today's tormented world, local often gets lost amidst all the angst and angry rhetoric. I think that's really sad, and it's really dangerous for our future. Why? Local is a fount from which all good, all kindness, inclusion, and inspiration spring. From which all young men and women who are ultimately built for others, from which all true leadership of our path forward emerge. My point? Each of you being celebrated locally here tonight in Brattleboro has influenced classmates and teammates. You have role modeled class, character, and excellence. You have captivated the school community, countless sports fans, impressionable children who all still believe in you. No matter where you may now call home, you have been heroes to many, you have inspired others to aspire, you still are, and you still do. So what do I hope you take away from tonight? Number one, look around. There's over 100 people here. You are clearly still respected. You are clearly still loved. Number two, be aware and be very proud that your achievements have influenced much of our village with dreams, with hopes, with the confidence to make a difference. Just like Andy Natowich, the boys of 65, Bill Holliday, my current mentor Rick Farnham, Joe Jewson, and so many more of my boyhood heroes have inspired me to be better, to be a giver, to help and support others, to try to make a difference. And then finally, wherever you may now live and work, whoever your circle of friends are, whoever your acquaintances may be, know that people admire you. People trust you. People rely on you. And people believe in you. Always remember, local matters. Use your powerful voice. People want to and need to hear you. Rise to the challenge of fulfilling their hopes. Stand tall to address the challenges our local communities are facing. Leverage the legacy you've earned. Understand that given your platform, you are an influencer. Commit to being a true force for good every single day. And of course, always embrace where it all started. BHS forevermore. Thank you. The highlight of our evening is now upon us. Our protocols for our induction ceremonies are as follows, and I expect them to be broken, but that's okay. I will introduce each inductee by name. I will then introduce each inductee's presenter and invite he or she to join me at the podium. At the conclusion of their presentation, he or she will invite their inductee to the podium to speak and also receive their Hall of Fame award. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you our first inductee of the evening. A four-sport high school standout and All-American Collegiate Nordic skier, Mr. David Lantz, class of 1970. Introducing Dave, his brother, Doug Lantz. Welcome, Dave.
I'm embarrassed I didn't know the Brattleboro tune, but I remember this: lean to the left, lean to the right, stand up, sit down. I was more interested in the cheerleaders, I'm afraid. I was going to start with 4-7 years ago, but actually it's 2 scores and 12 years ago. Thanks very much. This is really, I'm the reason I'm standing up here, I'm afraid. I'm going to read you something quickly because this is what I did November 24th, 2020. I said, "Hi Bill, my name is Doug Lantz. I would have been BUHS class of 74. I especially remember watching you compete in basketball. I was a kid at Green Street School." Where's Bill? And I just remember you wore glasses and you hustled. I mean, you stood out. I said, "I don't know." They said, "That's Billy Holiday." So I said, "I can remember that." I'm one of 6 boys who attended Brattleboro, school in Brattleboro. My dad managed a jewelry store called Simon's Jewelers on Main Street. My oldest brother, Jim, was class of 68. David was class of 70. Tom was class of 71. In 1970, Dad purchased a jewelry store in Newport, New Hampshire. We commuted the first year, or he did, so Tom could finish and graduate Brattleboro. I enjoyed reading each bio on the BUHS Hall of Fame inductees, and it made me consider a future inductee. I hope this doesn't seem unusual, but I'd like to nominate my brother Dave. Then I wrote this, because I'm not going to, I wrote David, BUHS class in 1970, ski team, track, golf, and cross country. 1970 junior national Nordic combined ski team. 1971 to 76 he was on the U.S. ski team, Nordic combined. 1973 he placed second in the NCAA D1 ski championship. He was the first American finisher. In 1973 he also was named All-American. Nordic combined ski team, he was the only American that was nominated that year in that sport. 74 he placed third in the NCAA D1 ski championship. He was the first American. In 74, this is what I wrote to Bill, by the way, in case you're wondering. I was just hoping I'd get him in on the first punch. In 74, he went to Middlebury College, and he was a winner of an award called the A. Byron Russ Memorial Athletic Award, and that was an award given to the outstanding two-sport athlete. In 1978, he coached the Eastern Junior National Team in Squaw Valley. Then I wrote, I have to note this, in 1970, many of the NCAA athletes were world-class athletes from Norway and Finland. After graduation from Middlebury College, Dave, class of 74, Dave spent countless hours coaching at all levels. Today he owns a family business, MJ Harrington Jewelers in Newport, New Hampshire, 603-863-1662. And there's much more. Bill, I hope this helps. I've asked him a few questions, but he's very modest. I believe he doesn't know I'm doing this. We had to let him know that after I'd written that letter, I said, hey Dave, I hope you don't mind, but I put your name in the pack to be possibly considered being Hall of Fame at Brattleboro, and he thought that was okay. And then Bill wrote back and said, hey, we need a few more things. That's cool, but we got to have some other stuff, like letter recommendations and things like that. There's quite a few steps. So, David, I'm sorry, but this is, I'm excited for you. You have no idea. If you were to meet David and ask him, and you said, hey, I've got a radio program, I need you to speak for 30 seconds on some of the highlights in your life, he would say, my wife and I raised two daughters who are the loves of my life. I was really lucky to be raised in southern Vermont, Brattleboro, surrounded by really cool people. I grew up in a big family, 6 boys, no sisters. We always have to say that, there's no sisters. He loves watching the next generation of we all have kids, and there's some pretty outstanding things going on with those kids, and that's really fun for him, I know it is. And he'd say, I own the family business. I've been continuing the family tradition that's going on for 70 years. And at the end, maybe somebody'd say, hey, did you guys ever ski? And he'd go, oh yeah, we skied a little bit. If there's a place, heaven, David, you'll definitely go, because David's never drank and he's never sworn. And I look around and there's some kids in the room, so I won't tell you, he did swear once when I was playing golf with him. It started with a D and ended with a K. That's about as swearing as that was big swearing for David. I went, come on, Dave, gee whiz. I've been asked a lot, because I'm number 4 and David's number 2, we go by numbers. And it's really pathetic, like cows in a barn, when we have a picture taken, they line up in the same order. It's weird. I just know Tom's to my right, Steve's to my left. And I also can hear my mom, both mom and dad are gone now, but they're here tonight, I'm sure. You'd think I was getting this thing, sorry. Mom would go, Jimmy, David, Tommy, Stevie, Jeffrey, Danny, whoever you are. She'd always say that. Heard that all my life. We just went by whatever name she called us. David would have also mentioned that he loved his community, and he's very active in his community at home. And one of the things that's really fun for him right now is that he'll introduce me. I'll go down to the store. I live about an hour north of, 45 minutes north, and he'll he'll go, hey, I want you to meet my crazy brother Doug. And he'll put his arm around me and go, which one of us is older? That's a big joke for him. He's 4 years older than I am, but for some odd reason, it might be the route I've traveled versus the one you've taken. But I look like I'm going to be older than you, I'm afraid. David's going to be 70 in about a month. I'm sorry. One of the things I'm most proud of, and I need you guys to know this, it's really cool, is that people ask me often, we moved here, moved away from here 51 years ago, and people ask, where are you from? I go, I'm from Brattleboro. And I say it every time, it comes out just that quick. I go, I'm from Brattleboro. I mean, I live in New Hampshire, but I said, I'm from Brattleboro. And until you move away from this place, you don't realize what a special community you guys have here. It's unbelievable. We moved to Newport, New Hampshire. And the joke I always had is I think they filmed Deliverance there. My first day of school, I was in 9th grade, and I said, everybody's related. And I know this is going to be on TV, so I say this in fun, you guys. I love Newport. But I can remember we moved the summer of 1971. Tom had graduated, and we were on the lawn playing football, and we lived in a place called Pollard's Mills, and a third of the mile down the road was the swimming hole that everybody in the world was at. And people were going by staring at us. And because we were the new family, it's a small community, and there were 6 boys. And we were playing football, and the coach stopped and said, because he lived up the road, hey, so you guys, it looks great, you guys, somebody's going to be coming up for the football team. And we were like, no, we don't play football. He goes, you're playing football right now? I go, no, we don't play football. We ski. He goes, well, that's all right. There's guys on the football team that ski. They're like, no, we do a little different kind of skiing. And next thing you know, we have hurdles on the lawn, and people we're doing these dry land things where you jump up over a hurdle and people are staring. And then we have this thing where we do a dry land thing onto a pole vault mat. We'd fly through the air, like pretend we were ski jumping and land on the mat. Then we had these cross-country skis that had wheels on them. We were whipping around with that. Honestly, I think they thought that there was circus in town, and nobody had left yet. That's what we brought to New Hampshire. I'm not going to go on for a long, long time because I said what David had done, and it's pretty amazing in my eyes. You were a great person to have be number 2 because you definitely set the pace for the rest of us. Jim was the oldest, but Jim took a bad fall in Maple Valley when he was about 15 years old and never jumped again. But 5 of us ended up jumping. Jim broke his hip. It started quickly just building little jumps, and with 6 kids, we weren't going to go to Maple Valley because it was going to cost $6 a piece, wherever it was then. So we started jumping, and David built, and there's some great people here tonight that remember this. He built a little jump behind the house that we had to dodge trees, and then you'd get in your run and jump, and the record was 42 feet, and it was Christmas vacation from school, and we couldn't wait to show Dad, and Dad took one look and said, that's it, nobody's out here again, that's it, because it was that dangerous, but we didn't think about that. The story I have to tell, when David was 12 and 13, because we were just at Harris Hill last month, David was on his way over. When he was 12 and 13, they were just going to pack the hill, and they said, hey, why don't you guys ride the landing hill? And David had fallen on the 3rd time he was down, and when he came up, do it again, there was somebody named, was it Ernie Mallinson? Yeah, he said, yeah, head on up. And David said, oh, you must not have seen me fall the last time down. So Dave went on up and was taking some jumps when Alan Sargent got there, and he said, what are you doing? He said, I'm jumping. He said, no, you're not. That's it. So David always seized and embraced those opportunities, and even when it wasn't a good idea, he went ahead and did it. That was pretty impressive. I'm skipping some stuff because I could be up here for an hour and I'm not going to be. I just made some highlights. I'm really, really proud of you, Dave. You have no idea. It's just really cool doing this. I love you so much. But I love all my brothers, but pretty impressive the things you've done on skis. But more the things that you've accomplished as a human being. I've watched you with your kids. I've watched, last night I called him and said, how come I haven't been able to get a hold of you? I need to talk to you. And he said, well, I had to take Meg up to Waterville. And Meg's not here tonight, but Meg competes in the Special Olympics, and she is a huge inspiration to the whole family. We get to watch her win gold medals and silver medals and all this other stuff. It's really great to see. But I watch you, David, the way you are with people, and I'm really glad that I wrote this letter, and I'm really excited that you're going to get recognized and be inducted into the Hall of Fame. You're a great brother, you're a great leader, you're a great friend, but you're really a great human being. And I learned something from you, and the right stuff in your heart, always the right stuff that comes out. So when people ask, are you Dave Lantz's brother? I say, yeah, you bet I am, and he's amazing. David, congratulations. I behaved. I really did. Didn't I? Thanks,
Even though he is 4.5 years younger, he was doing things before I was back in Brattleboro. I think my first date I was 17, and I believe he was 12.5. I was a little slow out of the gate. And I was a little slow out of the gate in a lot of different things I did, and I think one of the guys that's also being honored tonight, Freeman, was probably one of the most important people in my life back in 7th and 8th grade. I was way too small to go out for any other sport. I weighed 79 pounds going into 7th grade, which was the smallest kid in the whole class. It was pretty clear to me that football was not my game. And Coach Freeman was just incredibly humble. I had no idea of his success along the way, but he had given us just that little inkling of hope and no discouragement that someday I might be able to do something. In a number of races in 7th, 8th grade, I was dead last. I remember that clearly. And he never discouraged me, so I continued on with track through high school. And I really was a late bloomer in so many ways, especially in the dating scene, as Doug will tell you. But I wanted tonight to just acknowledge the people that have affected my life in such a positive way. And there have been a lot of you in this room, along with my 5 brothers, several out here. Jim was the oldest brother who unfortunately did not pursue his sporting career as much as he wished. However, I would argue that he became one of the best, I call him an oil digger, but he really was a petroleum engineer. He went from Brattleboro to UVM on to Texas A&M, and he worked around the world his career, identifying places to drill for oil, and he was incredibly successful. So that was number one. It's good to hang around with successful people, and that was one of the lessons I learned early on. Then my brother Tom, and Tom is here tonight. Tom he'll claim that he has the family record for ski jumping distance, and at least officially, he is correct. But Tom didn't like to ski cross country, and cross country skiers and jumpers together became the field of Nordic Combined that I skied in. Nordic Combined was a sport that was a little different, required quick speed and ability to launch off a ski jump, and at the same time incredible endurance to race a 15-kilometer. Actually, I raced one 50-kilometer cross-country race in Putney. And I remember my dad said, don't ever start something you can't finish. And there were probably, that particular race, I think as I recall, 40% or 50% of the starters never finished. And I was not the speediest guy out there. I didn't finish last. I think I was in the top 10 because only about 15 finished. But it was really one of those memories that through the whole race, and it was a long race, I just kept hearing Dad say, you got to finish what you start. You got to finish what you start. which was a great message. Again, being strongly influenced by great people that have surrounded me my whole life. And then we got Doug. Well, you just heard from Doug. And he is my crazy younger brother. And he is one of the funniest guys. We play a lot of golf when we can together. And he just turned out, he's a scratch golfer. He was a golf pro for a while. So again, found some level of success. My brother Steve is he participated in sports, but found his success in the IT world, and he's now IT director for a large hospital in Torrance, California. My baby brother Geoff, who's 10 years younger, has had great success in the world of jewelry, left me as a partner back in 1996, sadly, and moved to Colorado, where his wife's family is from, and at one point was the general manager of the largest jewelry store in Denver. So again, really fun to look back as I reflected on where I had come from. In Brattleboro, we lived on the Upper Dummerston Road, and Peter Thiessen and Ralph Chapman are here tonight as representatives of the Brattleboro. We used to be called the Upper Dummerston Road, I think we were called the Brats from the Dummerston Flats by one of the retired guys there. There was a huge crew of boys and one girl, Julian Loney, in this stretch of about a half or 3/4 of a mile out there. And that's where real friendships began, and we continue with Pete Thiessen here tonight and with Chris Chapman, pretty special families that we have stayed in contact with. And then another member of that era for me was Kenny Howe, and Kenny and my younger brother Geoff were particularly good friends. Kenny has spent most of his career as a baseball coach at Keene State. He grew up in Keene, he played baseball at Keene High School at Keene State, and for 35 years was their head coach. Again, I think back as I reflect on this, the success of the people I hung around with, and it had a huge impact on inspiring me to do what I did every day. And I have my family with me tonight. I have Luann, and I have Katie and Andy, my daughter Kate. My daughter Megan, as Doug said, is not here, but two of the stories that I wanted to share real quickly that really held some special meaning for me as I moved along in life were ones with my kids. Katie played basketball just a little bit, and as a she did play in high school, but as a 7th and 8th grader, she was involved in a community basketball league, and the guy that ran the league asked me if I would coach, and I said, well, I've never played basketball, I'm really not sure anything about it. And he said, well, I think you'll be okay. So I went to the library and got a book on the rules of basketball. And Katie and her teammates began the season, and I remember it was either the first game or a practice where one of them, I won't mention any names, but one of them got a rebound, was so excited they quickly threw the ball back up, got a basket, realized they were on the wrong end. Lots of fun, and the way this all takes us is at the end of the year, we had a championship, and our team had qualified for the finals of this championship. And the team they were playing had beaten them, I think, 40-15 maybe the previous game before we went into the round robin at the end of the season. Anyway, our girls lit up the court, and they came prepared, but against a team whose parents all had cameras and flowers and everything, because they had so clearly felt this was going to be a big victory for them. And our team just humbly walked away with the trophies. We went to Pizza Hut. But it was a memory I'll never forget because it taught us all such lessons about being prepared, but also knowing how to win and how to lose. And they won with such grace that that's so clear in my mind. And then the other daughter, Megan, is the only person I've ever attended a basketball game at that actually got 6 3-pointers in a row, which was just remarkable. The coach came over and asked us, he said, Megan, can you give me an autograph, please? And Megan is a special needs young lady, and she really was, and it has continued to inspire all of us in so many ways. So again, surrounded by really neat people. But one of the neatest was Art Freeman, and I will never forget. In fact, after 40 years of graduating from high school here in Brattleboro, I sent him a letter because I realized that he had had such a significant impact in my life, and I never acknowledged it. I just hadn't. So I sent him a letter. I wrote a fairly long letter to him, and I was really it was really important to me to let him know how important he was in my travels through the ski world. And then my coach at Middlebury, John Bauer, was the winner of the King's Cup, which was the biggest Nordic ski event in the world in Holmenkollen, Oslo, Norway. He was invited to the White House after his victory in 1968. And when he was invited, it was not by LBJ, it was by King Olaf of Norway. And that demonstrated the incredible regard the world of skiing had for John Bauer. And I had the privilege of skiing under him for 4 years and becoming a good friend. And my one regret is that I never wrote the letter like I wrote to Art Freeman to John Bauer until he passed on, and I had missed that opportunity. So I wrote the letter to his wife Bonnie and to both his kids. And I tonight would encourage any one of you who has somebody in particular that has really touched your life to take a few minutes and write a letter to them. And I don't care whether it's half a page or 10 pages long. It was such a wonderful exercise for me to just acknowledge an incredible spirit that had been such a guiding force in my life. And it was just a few words said, and then I realized we have an opportunity, every one of us, every day, to say something kind to somebody, to say just one word that may really redirect where they go with their life. And I work in a jewelry store where I talk to people every day, and it is a real honor to be able to do that, to listen and to have those conversations. I guess in the family, I would like to end this by just saying my uncle's favorite commentary when he departed from us was, "Okay, boys, it's time to carry on." And I will say to you, carry on, and I thank you all for being here. I'm really honored to be part of this induction class, and thank you for being here.
It gives me great pleasure to make our second introduction. This is a group, an undefeated group of athletes who over 5 consecutive seasons fought their way to an unblemished 64-0 record. Yeah, wow. May I present to you the 1970 through 1974 BUHS girls tennis team. Introducing our historically awesome team is Trixie Wessell, a key member of this multi-year dynamic group of simply unstoppable young women. We're going to get them all up here, which is awesome too.
Oh, hey, he's wearing short shorts.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. I had a longer speech, but my kindergarten friend Dimick took all the time. Thanks, Thank you. I'm here to say a few words about the team. The BUHS girls tennis team, from the 5 years spanning from the spring of 70 to 74, are honored to be inducted into the Athletic Hall of Fame. Over the 5 years, these teams accumulated 52 straight wins, and in the spring of 73, also won the first annual Vermont State Invitational Girls Tennis Championship. The overwhelming factor of our success was the depth that each team had. Brattleboro was well known as a sports town, and tennis was a popular summer pastime. Between the rec department's lessons at the Memorial Park courts and the strong Brattleboro Outing Club's tennis program on Cedar Street, many of us honed our tennis skills at an early age. By the time we played varsity tennis, our talent was ahead of the competition. Where other teams had 1 or 2 strong players, the girls of Brattleboro could boast 5 or 6. The popularity of playing on the BUHS girls tennis team grew, and by the spring of '73, there was a good-sized and talented JV team as well. Many names to mention from these years start with the coaches, Ms. Sedgwick and then Marianne Ozdarski. Worth mentioning is that neither coach played tennis, but their enthusiasm, support, and camaraderie spread throughout the years. We taught them how to play tennis. Over 30 players participated in these successful teams. To name a few, Linda Grass, Donna Dearborn, Chris Tripp, Lynn LaRosa, Randy Zeider, Vicki LeClaire, Helen Burgess, Mary Ballou, Cindy Jones, Pam Long, and a few of us here tonight, Ann Burrows, Marsha Rounds, Chris Lark, Rachel Noyes, and Kathy Eakins. We are all proud of this accomplishment, and thank you again for the recognition. And we are happy to present the Hall of Fame plaque to Ann Burrows, Brayden, who was one of the few players who played all 4 years at the varsity level and the #1 player on our championship team.
Our next inductee, I actually had a front row seat to watch him evolve into one of the greatest basketball players our school ever developed. A record-setting 3-sport high school star and an equally accomplished 2-sport collegiate student athlete. It is my great pleasure to introduce our next inductee, Geoff Sather, class of 1975. And introducing Geoff this evening, the man with the most airtime, off and on, Mr. William Holliday, BUHS alum, athlete, and multi-sport coach.
The nomination form came in for Geoff Sather, and it started me thinking. And I said, geez, yeah, what an athlete. What did this guy do? Not much. He played soccer. He left Brattleboro Union High School, and for many years thereafter was the leading scorer in BUHS history. He was a track star as well, winning in multiple events, dual meets and others, several events. But he went to the state competition and won the high jump twice, setting the Vermont state record in that. Fantastic athlete. But I remember Geoff most as a basketball player. He was great. Art Freeman called him the best player he'd seen in 20 to 30 years at BUHS. So, here's my story about Geoff and me. I was in my 20s, just out of college, where I did play basketball, and I was in pretty good shape playing in the local men's league down here, and we had a very good team, and we won multiple Class A championships during the 1970s and even after. One day, we showed up for the game, and there was this gangly, about 6'5" kid from BUHS. Geoff had run into some difficulties at the high school, couldn't play for a little while at the high school. And so we went down to the rec league, where high school kids are not supposed to play. It's preferred that they would play with the high school, rather than in the men's league, so they had a rule not to allow this in, but Geoff was there. And we started to play the ball game, and it became very, very apparent that Geoff, come on up, Geoff, please, was going to be a very difficult guy to guard. He was scoring some points, and we looked around the huddle and said, well, who's going to guard this guy? And they looked at me and they said, you guard him. I was quick enough, but he was just as quick. And obviously, I was no match for Geoff. So we went to a kid that I played with in college who was 6'8" and said, you go guard him. Couldn't guard Geoff. Geoff was much too quick, could handle the ball, went by him, no problem whatsoever. Long story short, when the ball game was over, and Geoff's mom, who kept meticulous records on Geoff's career, and I differ on this a little bit, but I'm going to give you my memory. We won the game by the narrowest of margins, and this high school kid laid 54 points on the best team in the men's A-League in Brattleboro. So, Jeffrey, come on over here and welcome to the Hall of Fame.
My mother kept the clippings from the Reformer for all those Industrial League games. And Billy is bringing 2 games to mind that took place 10 years apart. The first one, I had 44 in that game. Sorry, not the 50, thank you. But the next time we played, 10 years later, I had 62 against him. And I have the box score to prove it. That was fun. So, how many people, honestly, have ever used the word, either in writing or just verbally, use the word trope? We have a murmuring in the front, maybe further back. I'm only aware of the murmuring here, that people know where this is going. How many of you honestly play Wordle? Okay, we're getting there. This is at least a third of the room. Hopefully you've already played it today. I've been playing it for months, and today was the first day that I got beat. I thought of the word on the 3rd line. You know, you have 6 guesses. I had it, they went through my head at the 3rd, but there's no way they're going to use the word trope. Nobody knows trope. What's trope? The reason I bring it up is because, like I said, I'd never missed it before, and I missed it this morning. And I start every morning with this game, Wordle, and that's not a good start to the day. I've never had it happen before, and what kind of an omen is this? I've got my family coming in from Brooklyn and Boston, and my wife has to go down and get it. The logistics are terrible. There's so many opportunities for all hell to break loose. There's no way I'm going to be able to get this whole crew at my table. And although you might have noticed that we got here later than anyone else in the room, we did get here. So that bad omen of the trope evidently didn't mean anything. So those of you that have some superstitions like I might, starting your day with Wordle, it's okay if you don't get it. It really is. I've got a lot of memories in this room, and none of them have anything to do with sports. I played in this room with the Stockwell Brothers Band. I played in this room with Billy's brother Pat on drums. And a lot of you know that band, but probably none of you remember Simon's Rock or A.B. Driver. Okay, Simon, we get some murmurs for that too. Good. And Tim Long there was something in here for Tim Long. So that's what I first go to. I go to music stuff in this room. A lot of thank yous, of course. Love the fact that the committee thought that I was worthy. I love even more that it gave me an excuse to get a suit. I've had no reason to get a suit since my wedding, which will be 28 years ago. And so my wife, Diane Ziegler, is now going to finally see me in something other than what I got that day. And my daughter Nell is here. We've had Middlebury College mentioned already tonight, and I had the pleasure of going there, and my daughter did too. She's a Fulbright scholar from Middlebury. My son Jamin is a phenomenal musician. He's here from Boston, saved us a ton of money with his merit scholarship to Wheaton College because he wowed them. I've got a 3-point specialist, my 15-year-old Declan, whose claim to fame is winning the free throw contest down at the Springfield Basketball Hall of Fame. Over 40 people, all ages, went down to a final between him and another guy. It was unbelievable. Probably the most exciting sports thing I've seen happen. Got Jim Egbert here. He flew in from Baltimore. Do we have anyone that came in further than Baltimore? Okay, what do we got?
South Bend, Indiana.
Okay, you got it. Well done. But there's only 2 hands that went up to beat you, Jim. Thank you. Steve Barrett's also at our table with his wife, Elaine. Thank you so much, Steve. A lot of great memories. Some of them accountable and relatable here, but we're going to save most of them. But Steve played basketball and track with me for all 4 years, and it was an amazing time. We've actually recounted how many people from that freshman year basketball team are no longer with us, and it's kind of disconcerting. I think we got up to 6. Half the team is no longer with us. That's bizarre. So even more reason to be thankful to be standing here. I've got a whole lot of stories. When you hear that you're going to be nominated for this and you're supposed to speak, as we already have seen, there are a lot of stories come out, a lot of memories come up. I've got a phone full of them. I've been talking into my phone for months. So many good stories. But since Art Freeman has been mentioned and thanked already, I think I'm going to jump on that wagon just for a second and say that Art knew that maybe it'd be a good idea for me to try the triple jump, but he mentioned that with 1 day before the Southern District qualifier, the last meet of the season for which I could qualify. And so I practiced 1 day, and then the next day was the last meet, and you had to hit this 36-foot mark to qualify for the Southern Districts. And I think my first jump in that meet was 28 feet, and then 29, and then 30. And then 31. The last jump of the day, I went off my wrong foot and got 36 feet, a couple inches. So I made it. We get to the Southern Districts and 36 feet, 37, 38, 39. The last jump, I went 41 feet 9 inches, won the thing as a freshman, and I could not believe what was happening. And I'm like this, and I turn around, and I see my mother and my father and my little brother, Paul, coached here forever, for those of you who don't know soccer, getting out of the car, arriving at the meet. I got here, speaking of, and this is going to be my last story because I really could go on forever, and I'd like to go on forever, but you don't want me to go forever. And no one's mentioned it yet, but North Carolina Duke starts at 8:58. I just want to say that I arrived in Brattleboro from Thessaloniki, Greece. Some of you know this, but most of you don't. I grew up in Thessaloniki, Greece, from age 5 to 14. So I arrived in Brattleboro after being in a school that had not too many kids. Okay, there were 8 kids in my 8th grade class. 8 kids in the grade I got here and there were 25 kids in Mr. Jakewith's homeroom, and there were 10 ninth grade homerooms. There were 250 kids in our grade. The culture shock, just everything was overwhelming. And thank God for soccer. And the fact that there were no rules back then about how many games you could play. So I played freshman, JV, and varsity my freshman year. I had a game every single day. Can't do that anymore. It was a blast. And I met all those kids. Freshman team, JV team, varsity team. The varsity team was fairly accommodating. The fact that Coach Anderson selected me to be the penalty kick taker as a freshman put a few noses out of joint, but that was okay. That was okay. They accepted me, and I've been accepted by the community ever since. It was a great start. I want to thank you all for whatever part you might have played in all of that, and in continuing this incredible tradition at Brattleboro. And I think we'll call it good enough. Thank you very much.
I promised myself I wouldn't do any editorial commenting, but I'm going to break that promise. And I'm actually going to chastise Coach Freeman. I've never done that before because he's one of my heroes. He taught me more about myself physically than anybody else growing up. But if you read your program, it says that Geoff Sather scored 986 points in his high school basketball career. And I don't know what the record for most points in a career by a boys high school basketball player is, but I'm going to guess maybe 1,100, 1,200. Well, I'm the reason that Geoff Sather scored 986 points, and I'm a little embarrassed by it. Yes, I was inducted into this Hall of Fame last year, but I can promise you it was not because of my basketball skills. Yet Mr. Freeman, who has a heart of gold, tried to teach me how to play the game of basketball. And finally, my senior year, I made the varsity team. And I was starting center. First game we played was against Lenny Kohlhaas from Fall Mountain. And I did okay, scored 8 points, held him to 6 points, so I thought it was going to be okay. And from that point forward, it just like fell apart. But I started the first 10 games, I kept looking over my shoulder at this big 6'5" blonde, bushy-haired kid. And I'm like, the end is near. And sure enough, Mr. Freeman finally smartened up. He said, enough is enough. He learned that I wasn't just at a dip, it was a dead end. He finally got me out of there, and Geoff Sather came in a half a year, scored probably 200 points. And if he had played all 10 games at the beginning of the start of the season, I guarantee he would have been the leading scorer in Brattleboro Junior High School boys basketball history. So, Geoff, I'm sorry. Blame it on Coach. It gives me great pleasure. Another young man that I've had a front row seat to watch him develop as a high school player and into college. 3-sport high school star and an awesome standout collegiate quarterback. Great pleasure for me to introduce Mr. Ben Gilbert, class of 1998. Ben. Introducing Ben this evening, his sister, Katie Wellner.
Good evening. Over the course of the next few minutes, I will attempt to whittle down a lifetime of memories, stories, statistics, accomplishments, to just share with you a few of the stories that really focus on the man behind the statistics. I want to start where all great stories start, which is at the very beginning. So you know how most babies, when they fall asleep, they have a lovey, a blanket, a stuffed animal? My brother fell asleep with a football. Since day one, it's been a football. Most children, their first words are mom, dad, dada, mama. My brother's first word was ball. He was crowned the Gilbert Headbutt Championship as a toddler. Not sure if anyone's played the headbutt game, but you get down on all fours, you put your forehead against the other person's forehead, and you have to push really hard and get them over this imaginary line. As a toddler, he was beating the adults in our family. It's a really big deal. During my mother's church group, he would wear my cousin Greg's football helmet, and he would get in his little Hot Wheel car, and he would pedal as fast as he could into a wall, over and over and over again. So these should have been key indicators that he was destined for greatness in the realm of football or some sort of sport, but it would be a while before he would start to play. Throughout his childhood, there wasn't a sport that my brother attempted that he didn't excel at. Some of Ben's first loves were basketball, baseball, soccer, sports that his son, who's here tonight with us as well, Hunter, excels at as well. But it wasn't until 8th grade, when my brother was playing soccer and he got injured, that my mother decided that it was too rough of a sport and he should transition to football. So, despite being a latecomer to football, Ben used his God-given talent to make up for some lost time and made football his standout sport amongst being a 3-sport athlete at BUHS. As the quarterback, Ben was selected to the 1998 Vermont Shrine High School team, who happened to beat New Hampshire for the first time in 10 years, so I think that's impressive. He also scored the first touchdown out of on Matawich Field under the lights. At Union College, Ben was the ECAC Rookie of the Year his freshman year. Yep. He was selected to too many all-conference first and second teams to list. He was the MVP of multiple championship games throughout his career, and he was Player of the Year multiple times in a row. He holds the college record for touchdown passes in a season, touchdown passes in a career rushing yards by a quarterback, career rushing touchdowns by a quarterback, and so many more. He achieved over 30 wins throughout his 4-year career in college. He passed for over 2,500 yards, rushed for over 500 yards, and that was per season. After college, he was invited to the NFL Combine, a sponsored NFL Combine, and what that is really a series of physical and mental tests, and they put you through the ringer amongst other athletes, and you have to see how you stack up. One of those tests is a 40-yard dash, which is a sprint to see how fast you can cover 40 yards. The average time for a prospective NFL quarterback to run 40 yards is 4.93 seconds. My brother ran that in 4.51 seconds, coming in just 2 seconds behind wide receivers at 4.48 and running backs at 4.49. This really further highlights Ben's versatility as a quarterback. He could scramble, he could execute design QB runs, he could be a drop back passer, and he could also sprint, and he could be a run action passer. He also ended up playing semi-pro football for the Storm, a team in Florida, and he was selected to the semi-pro all-star team as well. But it's not the stats that make Ben so deserving of this honor and recognition tonight. As his coach in college, John Audino, said, the stats were just average years for Ben. They don't describe the type of person that he is. Sure, the production on the field is great, but the man is even greater. The beauty of Ben Gilbert goes beyond any type of football field. Ben's character is second to none, a wonderful human being, respected by all, and always humble and kind, giving credit to everyone else except for himself. There is no one who lights up a day like Ben Gilbert. I want to leave you with a story that was shared by one of his former teammates, Macklin. As soon as it was announced that he had been nominated and selected for this honor, Macklin took the time to write this up, and it's just such a wonderful tribute, and it really summarizes who Ben is on and off the football field. So Macklin writes, I was primarily a special teamer in 9th grade, but one time I was put in for a single running play during a blowout win. I was very nervous in the huddle, and I had every right to be because I was extremely bad at football. I got even more nervous when I realized I would be the ball carrier in that play. As if sensing my insecurity, Ben looked me in the eyes and said, "You got this, Mac?" It was technically a question, but the tone of his voice implied a confident statement, "You got this." I proceeded to tear off a 15-yard run thanks to some stellar blocking up front. I felt like a superstar that day, partly because of my longest and, well, only career carry, but mostly because my quarterback had believed in me. Ben had taken the time after calling the play in the huddle to connect with me in a human moment. I will always remember Ben's leadership above and beyond his exceptional skills under center. So it was with my great honor and humbleness that I introduce my best friend and my brother, Ben.
Catherine, thank you for those words. Once again, I have to follow you as you set the bar for us. And I'm thankful that the internet wasn't around when I played, so no one can fact check those stats. First, let me say this is a humbling honor and a privilege to be inducted into the BHS Hall of Fame. I personally want to thank Scott Nadeau and the entire committee, especially Mr. Holliday, and anyone else that referenced my name during the process. I also want to say congratulations to the other inductees on their honor. As one of the younger inductees, I think, know that your names that hung from state titles and state record banners was extremely motivating for a young kid to walk the halls of BHS. Growing up, I was fortunate to be surrounded by family and friends who made sacrifices to support youth sports. I actually played in the inaugural year of the current small fry field, which was built by community members, including my dad and uncles. And I was also allowed to play junior pro basketball a few years too early because my coach was Uncle Mike. I love sports here in Brattleboro. I love to compete. I love the grit that Brattleboro athletics fosters. It helps when your workout consists of running up sand pits and hair sail ski jumps. The only courts we could play on was the Crow Lot and an aging indoor rec court, and then the best part, a backyard dirt court that your dad built with a spotlight until the neighbors yelled to keep it down. As we got older, I was fortunate enough to play for Mr. Arkelian, who built the AAU team Automaulers, where he's won numerous state titles and allowed us to grow by playing competition that pushed us to grow and mature, meaning we got beat every time we traveled to Boston tournaments. But more importantly, ultimately, when you get to a point where your name is mentioned with awards and records for two reasons, your coaches and your teammates. And tonight I want to recognize some who sacrificed and volunteered their time for us. Coach Liberdoni, thank you for pushing us and showing us what hard work was and what it takes to get to another level. Your leadership led us to the 97 state title. Coach Tenney, thank you for your wisdom and knowledge that you shared with us. While you never remembered my name, you always knew me as Tommy's boy, as you once coached my dad as well. Coach Bashford, the ultimate coach who prepared like no other. Thank you for traveling the state to scout our competition with Mr. Coach Freeman, who it's an honor to share the stage with you today. You taught us how to outwork the competition and to play the game the right way. And coaches, I'm sorry I missed those foul shots. You know the ones. To Coach Miller, no one believed in us more, and for that I thank you. Your passion drive drove us to be the best versions of ourselves. And Coach Mack, there are some coaches who leave a lifelong impression on the athletes, and then there was Charlie. He always said never too high, never too low. You all instilled the discipline, the accountability, and the life lessons that prepare us for competition in life. You are all indispensable in our successes on and off the field, and I thank you. To my teammates, who I was fortunate enough to compete with, because know this, without the Kyle, Geoff, Josh, Matt, Chris, Brett, Ryan, and many others, there'd be no stories or awards here tonight. And a thank you to all the athletes who inspired me and who I wanted to emulate growing up, from all the Henry cousins to Stuart DeJong and to the most important, Greg Pasha, my brother. Thank you for showing what a winner was and setting the bar for who I always wanted to be. I always worked towards being the better version of Greg 2.0. To my sister, aunts, uncles, and my entire family, I cannot thank you enough for the support and the memories we were able to experience together. No one showed up more to cheer, represent our family in the town. There are still stories and memories of the convoy of cars that traveled up 91 or over to Route 9. And lastly, my parents, Mom and Dad, thank you. Thank you for the support, the attendance at every event, and for teaching me that names on the front and the back of the jerseys represent more than just me. If I can install half that. If I can install half of that into what you taught me to my kids, they'll be all right. Thank you for being my heroes. Thank you.
It is my great honor, both professionally and personally, as an alum of BUHS, to introduce this next candidate, this next Hall of Fame inductee. It's already got me shook up here. a record-setting three-sport athlete at BUHS and a record-setting collegiate track star as well. The gentleman I just chastised for the first time in 66 years, forgive me, Mr. Art Freeman, Brattleboro Union High School class of 1958. Introducing Coach Freeman, his son, Jim Freeman.
He's got a long memory. I know he does. Hi, I'm Jim Freeman. Most of you know Coach Freeman. There's probably nobody that doesn't. But he was also an athlete, and so I'm going to give you mostly the facts. I am a Duke man. So, Art was a dedicated three-sport athlete at BHS. He lettered in football, basketball, and track. As a junior, he was given honorable mention as an all-state quarterback for the 56th season. A broken wrist would keep him from playing his senior year. In basketball, Art was runner-up for the SPL individual title his junior year with 211 points. His senior year. It was track that Art excelled. He was a 4-year member of the track team. As a senior, he won the 880 at the state track meet in 1958. At the New Englands, he won his heat, which prompted BU coach Doug Raymond to offer him a scholarship at BU. This was good timing. Things were tight back then. In fact, he was already dating my mother in the 8th or 9th grade. I can't really get I beat on that, but in college he hitchhiked home because he didn't have the money to pay for a bus ride, which was $5, you know. At BU, Art majored in physical education, which he turned into his life's work. On the track, Art set the BU record for the mile with a time of 4:11:05 as a junior in 1961. He held that for over a decade. In his senior year in 1962, Art was named co-captain of the track team. He would win a New England track event in the 880 with a 1:54.9 time. This event was held in Boston's Garden. Schools such as Harvard, BC, and Northeastern attended, so it was a pretty big win for him. At the same meet, he ran one leg of the mile relay, and BU won that in 3:24.4. After graduation from BU, Art returned to Brattleboro and was offered a physical education job. He did that for 40 years. Sometimes the thought of that, to me, opening that door with that key every morning and closing that door, it's like a huge deal of dedication. But his work allowed him time to coach, which is what he really loved. He coached 3 sports: football, basketball, track and field. He was an assistant varsity and freshman football coach with Coach Nadowich for 6 years, from 63 to 68. Art was head coach of the varsity basketball team for 9 years. He actually turned down the head job when I came along. He didn't want to coach me and with everything that goes along with that. Probably a good move. But anyways, he came back around and he coached JV basketball for more than a decade. He returned to coaching freshmen. He coached 7th and 8th again. He could never say no, and he really loved basketball. So, working with Bob Perro, he was instrumental in starting and maintaining the junior and senior pro basketball leagues, which a lot of people here have played in, and they're still going today. That's a great thing. Participation is key. The more people that participate, the better off everyone is. He also coached AAU with a lot of different players. He did end his career there, coaching my son to a state championship in 2009. And then came track and field. He was an assistant coach for 6 years. The 64 and 65 teams won the states. He took over the head coaching job after that for 26 years, from 69 to 94. And as the son of a coach, well, all his friends were coaches. And if they weren't coaches, they were people he played ball with. I mean, that was the whole, everything in life revolved around the sports. Under his tutelage, they won 2 more state champions in 79 and 93. He had 31 individual state champions while he was coaching track. And Coach Freeman helped a lot of young men and women perfect their craft and teach them that it was mental toughness is worth twice physical. And basically try to get as much as you can for yourself. Work as hard as you can for your benefit, not for his. So Coach Freeman's years of service and dedication were honored when the track was named after him, which was a very big deal for him. Freeman Track. So I would like to thank Coach Hummer Holmes, Dave Maslowskis, and especially Coach John Dimick for helping me induct my father. And there you go.
Arthur is the first inductee into the BUHS, BHS Athletic Hall of Fame to go in as both a coach and athlete.
I'd just like to say something about this. I coached football there for a few years. The 65 team, and they were kind of disappointed that I didn't say anything about them when they got in the induction. To me, the 65 football team, they came to practice very hard every day and worked to their best of their ability. And I've been around other teams and played myself and so forth, and I had never seen any better group of young men working that hard to be the best they could without long practices. And they did it. In basketball, before I started coaching, from 1955 to 1969, Brattleboro had never won a playoff game in basketball. One of the good things that happened to me, we played St. Albans one year. They were 19-1, and we had to go up and play against them, and we beat them. So that was very good. And then I thought one of the best chances we had to win or get into the state championship game, and Geoff Sather was a senior, but Peter LaFlamme was on our team, and he was the best outside shooter that we had. Unfortunately, he sprained his ankle in the last game of the year and could not play. We played Bellows Falls, and it was a very close game. We got beat, and Bellows Falls got to the state finals. And now I'll go on to track and field. Well, I'll give you a quick one. When I was a freshman, I actually played in a couple of varsity baseball games. I was actually technically on the JV team. There was a track meet on Saturdays, a couple of them, and I'm standing there watching the pole vault, and we used to have a pole vault pit in my neighbor's yard. And the coach says to me,
why don't you jump in there and pole vault? We really don't have any pole vaulters today, so I ended up pole vaulting to get my track things in. I don't know, Matt always never said anything. So forth. Then, as you heard, I won the state championship in a half mile when I was a senior. And ordinarily, they put all the state champions in the seeded heat. To this day, I do not know why. They put me in the slow heat. And in the slow heat, with 150 yards to go, I was in 7th place, 30 yards behind the first place guy. And I went by everybody and won the slow heat. The coach from BU walked out of the stands, who I had never seen in my life, and said, how'd you like a track scholarship to BU? And that changed my whole life. I was going to UVM, and I probably would have flunked out. They had no phys ed up there, so forth. So very thankful to Doug Raymond. And then between my sophomore and junior years, Bill Smith became the track coach at BU. Doug Raymond had left. And he was a better track coach as far as what to do for workouts and so forth. And he's the one that got me down to the 4:11 mile, so forth. And the best milers in the whole Northeast were from Harvard, Boston College, and Dartmouth. And they beat me easily first couple of years. And eventually, I got to beat them in an event here and there. I ran cross, you had to run cross country, indoor track, and outdoor track. And then you might get a kick out of this. When I was a senior, Bill Smith got me a full scholarship. And he comes to me in the middle of February and says, I want you to run in this national meet in Madison Square Garden, 1,000 yards. But he says, the athletic director doesn't think you're good enough. So I want you to hitchhike to the meet, and then you can sleep on this kid's floor when you get there. And he said, if you get a place, we'll go back to the AD and see if we can't get some money out of it. So I finished one place out of getting the 5th place, which back then they gave 5 places because it was a big meet and so forth. But in the long run, it was a very good experience for me, learning about life in general, and maybe how to treat kids as they came along, and some things they had to do and to be successful, so forth. And then the very first year, I come back and they give me the cross country job before football started. And fortunately that year, Everett Dunklee was the state champion, easily. He won easily, and he's the kid that I would run with him sometimes. We'd run for 45 minutes to an hour straight, going down to Guilford, over the mountain, back into Vernon, and then back into school, so forth. Here's a high school kid that he would kind of push me to make sure that I was still running with him and so forth. But that ended up very good. And then I coached football, and then Coach Kennison. Oh, I know. First year of track, there wasn't a track position open either. And the school board gave me a few $100s and said, would you go out and help? And I said, yeah, sure, because back then you needed money, definitely. It was an opportunity. And Bill Sorton, at the end of the year, said, who was the assistant coach, he said, if they'll hire you as the coach, I will resign. And that's what happened. And then Frank Kennison became the assistant principal, and I took over as the head track coach. And one of the most important things had, like Jim mentioned, I had 31 state champions, which it was nice to have the team champions, but the 31 individual track and field awards was just great. And one of them was, like they mentioned, Geoff Sather.
Steve Barrett, too.
Steve Barrett won, too? As time went on, and they honored me with honored my name on the track, and that was, I thought was one of the very nice gestures. And as they were growing up, my own kids practiced very hard and did as well as they could in whatever sport they were in. And I was very proud of them doing that. And then I know, they did mention their names. The best track coaches I ever coached with, and we all worked together very hard, and we all had a sense of humor at times, was Dave Maslowskis, John Dimick, and Hummer Holmes. And then the wife of, who we've been married 61 years now, like we had the Brattleboro relays. After the relay meet, I would have the officials come over to my house, coaches, sometimes some of the opponent coaches, and she would make sure she cooked out a nice meal for them. And then, like in the wintertime, Bill Holliday was an assistant coach there, and I said, Bill, we need to scout somebody tonight. And sometimes we went to Rutland, we went to Burlington, I think once. And we'd only have a very short period of time to eat. And I'd go home and Bill would be there, and we'd tell the wife, hey, we got 10 minutes to eat something, because we didn't have time to stop anyplace and so forth. And she had it made, and then she had to cook for the rest of the family. The other thing that I am very grateful for, and this is how I envisioned it, the people of Brattleboro, I'm very thankful as the years went by, helping me to be a better teacher and a better coach. Thank you.
Our next inductee, a seemingly superhuman four-sport athlete in high school who duplicated that fate at University of Vermont. Being inducted posthumously this evening is Frank Taylor, class of 1937 from Brattleboro High School. He was an organ grinder, not a colonel. Accepting and speaking to Frank's honor on behalf of Frank and his family, Paul Rounds, BUHS class of 1968.
It's an honor and a privilege to be here this evening to introduce Francis Frank Marshall Taylor to the Hall of Fame. Frank was a member of the class of 1937 BHS, organ grinder. At Brattleboro High School, Frank captained 3 sports and lettered in 4. Frank was elected to the Southern Vermont All-Stars as junior and senior in basketball, and is elected as captain of the Southern Vermont All-Star football team his junior and senior year, the only player to be captain 2 years in a row. In my house growing up, when talking about how good an athlete was, it wasn't on a scale of 1 to 10. It was 1 to Frankie. Brattleboro legend Ernie Johnson said he knew he could play professional sports if he could be half as good as Frank. Having coffee one day with Ernie, I asked him about the statement. He said, "I made it to the majors, but I do not think I ever became half as good as Frank Taylor." Frank was inducted into the inaugural University of Vermont Athletic Hall of Fame in 1969. At his induction to the University Hall of Fame, the question was asked, when was the last University of Vermont boasted of a Grand Slam athlete? No doubt it was 1941, the second consecutive year that Francis Marshall Taylor won varsity letters in 4 sports. Not only did he star in 4 sports, he captained 3 of them. He amazed 82 points in football when UVM had football. He led the basketball squad and was a power hitter in baseball. Please remember, in Frank's years, you could only play varsity sports for 3 years. Probably because of lack of time, he did not receive any more awards in other sports. Frank did, however, win the intramural bowling championship at UVM, and one more feat, was a champion of the grueling heptathlon, which requires great skills in many individual performance events. Frank didn't play his strongest sport at UVM. That was skiing. After graduation from UVM in 1941 with a degree in engineering, Frank joined the Navy to help fight in World War II. When the war ended and Frank returned to this area, he was offered contracts to play in all 3 major sports. He declined because, being in his late 20s, he thought it was time to settle down, work as an engineer, and raise a family. Frank did continue to play semi-pro in all 3 sports and coached many levels in Massachusetts. Upon retirement, he returned to northern Vermont, where he enjoyed his favorite pastime, skiing. Just one other note, some of you know Pete Ferragoni, and you could check with Pete. He would have told you Frankie was the best athlete he had ever saw too. So I never saw him, only met him later on in his life, but from what I was told, he was the best athlete of BHS career.
This Hall of Famer was a record-setting high school cross-country and track athlete and a national caliber collegiate harrier. With great privilege to introduce Jason Dunklee, class of 1992. Introducing Jason this evening is John Dimick, his high school coach, and, I will editorialize, another deserving future inductee into our Brattleboro Hall of Fame.
Thank you, Reggie. I won't go to singing "Oh Michael May Come Join the Fray," as I actually graduated down the street here on Walnut Street. But I've coached at Brattleboro for many, many years. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here on Jason's behalf. I was the head coach for cross country at Brattleboro, BUHS, from 1986 until 2018, and I coached track and field at the high school for many of those years as well. As coaches, we have the privilege of working with many fine young men and women and during a very important period of their development. And we may be fortunate enough to have had a few exceptional athletes under our care and tutelage during our careers. As a former distance runner myself, I have a special place in my heart for distance runners that I've coached. And in particular, I really show a lot of preference to the sport of cross country, which is kind of a quiet sport, but it's one that's dear to my heart. I don't understand why, but at some point in time, after the two previous Dunkleys, who I'll mention again, and before I started teaching at BUHS in the early 70s, cross country somehow as a program went into a brief decline and was dropped from the official teams. Bill Stone was a teacher up there, had a daughter who was interested in running, came to me and said, would I be interested in helping him get the sport going again as a club. So in 1985, Bill and I resurrected the sport as a club. And I took over it myself. Bill got out of it in 1986, and the high school was kind enough to reinstate varsity status for cross country. Team worked hard to rebuild its status and in the Southern District and the state. In the fall of 1989, we had a small group of runners sign up for cross-country season. But one young man's name immediately caught my attention, and the name was Dunklee. And in Brattleboro, that's a pretty famous name in the endurance sports and in running in particular, and skiing. As we mentioned before, Everett Dunklee, his dad Lester and his mom over here, Everett was the first Dunklee to come along who won 2 state individual cross-country titles and in the early 60s. And he'd done as well in track and went on to become a Winter Olympian in the sport of biathlon, skiing, and shooting. His brother Stan also won state cross-country championship and went on to make several Winter Olympic schemes as a Nordic skier as well. Jason was their nephew, and so I figured his prospects might be pretty good. Jason worked hard. He claims he'd never run really before that when he came out. I think he played basketball and baseball his freshman year, but that didn't prove to be too fruitful for him. And he did know that he liked to run, so he came out for the team as a sophomore, and he wasn't the top of the pack to begin with. We had a couple other runners. In fact, that was the year of the 3 Jasons. We had Jason Gaddis, Jason Hanna, and Jason Dunklee. And the kids worked hard. And well, by the end of the season, Jason did ultimately become the top runner on our reasonably small team. He went to the state meet that year, and remarkably placed 3rd as a sophomore. That was starting from scratch in the fall. That was very exciting. In Vermont, when you finished in the top 25 as an individual of all the divisions, you would get to earn the right to go to the New England Championship. And so we went down to the New England Championship where he placed a respectable 28th. He raced well in track for Coach Freeman as well. And the following season, when interviewed by the Brattleboro Reform, Jason admitted that he never expected his level of early success when he first joined the cross country. He just knew that he enjoyed running, and he thought he'd give it a try. So during his junior year, he really became a force. He came back, and immediately you could see this young man was destined for some greatness. His only loss before the state meet that year was at the prestigious Essex Junction Invitation. We traveled up north, and there were several hundred kids in the race. He led going down the stretch coming into the finish, but was outkicked in the last few yards and lost by, I think, 3 seconds to a young man from Plattsburgh, New York, who the previous week had run the 5th Avenue High School mile and ran 4:10. As high school, that's a little better than Art Freeman's PR as a college student. That's how good this kid was. And Jason nearly had it. He went undefeated for the rest of the season, including the state meet where he won. I've got to come back to my place here for a minute. So after he won the state meet, he won it pretty easily, actually. There was a young man from Burlington that tried to get him, but when they hit the downhills, it was all. Jason was a very good downhill runner, and he was probably the most relaxed and loose runner I had ever seen at that point. He just looked like he was floating, and all the coaches would say, "Wow, this kid's just floating up there." So we went to from there we traveled down to Manchester, New Hampshire, to the Dairyfield Park, which is a pretty famous cross-country course. It was a cold, wet, rainy, muddy day. Jason had actually traveled over the week before and watched the New Hampshire Meet of Champions over there, so he was familiar with the course. And he had a little race plan, which I thought was to kind of hang on for a while and then try to kick at the end. But unbelievable to me, at the first mile, just took control. It was like he had a different plan in mind. And I think he was worried he didn't want to have to kick at the end against some of these guys. And he won easily in the rain and the mud. It was quite incredible. He almost lost it though. He took a wrong turn right at the end. There was a cone, and he missed the cone, and he had to come back and get it. But even with that, he still won pretty easily. Afterward, he was quoted saying, "It went exactly as I wanted it to." Speaking of it, it was a lot easier than I thought it would be. I was surprised that I could take the race so easily. I was expecting someone to be with me all the way. I thought there'd be more challengers at the end, but I was running my own race the whole time. He said, "This is incredible. It's incredible. I dreamed of this, but never really expected it to happen." So a couple weeks later, I took him down to New York City to Van Cortlandt Park to race in the Kinney Regional qualifying race for the National High School Championships. He'd never been to New York City. He actually, I was looking through the clipping up, he wrote an article later for the school newspaper about his trip to the big city. It was pretty humorous to read. Because he's a small town boy and never seen the city. We looked at the course, and we knew it would go out fast. And Van Cortlandt Park it's a big open field. The first mile is just almost like going around a golf course, but then it goes into the woods and it gets tough after that. And so we said, if you're not in the top 20 going into the woods, it's probably not going to happen. Well, I think he was like 28th going into the woods, and he fell down once in the woods. And coming out, he ended up finishing 12th, 4 places and 15 seconds away from a trip to the Nationals. So we go into the award ceremony after where he earned his medal. He ultimately became a 1990s high school boys all-junior All-American that year. But up on the stage, they're presenting the medals to the top 15 or so, and so he's in there. And one of the presenters is a gentleman named Eamon Coughlin, who at that point was the indoor world record holder in the mile, as well as many other high accolades. I whispered to Jason, "Will you go up there and you get your medal? Get on it, Eamon, and just tell him you wished he'd had his finishing kick." And Jason did. The shy guy that Jason was, he did get on, and Eamon, I think, whispered back to me, "I bet you did wish that, and good luck, work at it, and you'll get it." So Jason returned for his senior season, and he picked up where he left off, winning all of his races in dominating fashion in the early course of the season. And we went back to Dairyfield Park right at the beginning of October. It's a huge race they have down there. It's grown now, they have thousands of kids. At that point, in his division, he probably was in the A division with probably 250 runners. And he won it easily. 15 seconds, that's a pretty good win in cross country. And broke the course record, which lasted about 15 years on that course. And things were looking bright until the next day. And at that point, he came down with a serious leg injury. Ultimately turned out, I think, to be a deep groin strain. We rested him for a week. We rested him for another week, and another week, and another week. And it just didn't seem like it was going to heal. Finally, we came down to a week before the state meet. The rest of the team had done pretty well. They weren't unbeatable, but they were good, and it looked like they they'd have a shot at making the New Englands. And early we thought maybe they'd win the states, but I went to him and I said, Jason, you know, I know maybe we should take a chance. We talked to the doctor and he said, yeah, he probably could. I said, excuse me. But if you don't run, you know, I don't think the team is going to make it. And if you want to get back to the New Englands, you're going to have to help them some. So he sucked it up and he went in the meet. And having only run 5 days in the last 6 weeks in the state meet on a hot, hot day, Jason finished 6th place, which was pretty remarkable. Pretty remarkable. And the team ultimately did make it, top 4 teams, and went to the New Englands. New Englands were 2 weeks later, and now he's had 2 more weeks of training, and we go to the New Englands, and he again pulls off a remarkable feat. He finishes 6th place in the New Englands. Top Vermonter beat all the kids that had beaten him 2 weeks before by over 15 seconds more than that, the top guy. And that was pretty cool too, although it was a shame he didn't have a chance to repeat. So 3 weeks after that, we made the return trip back down to the big city. Of course, he knew his way around the city now. He'd been there before. And it was the same deal, the Kinney race. He ran exceptionally well again. He actually came out of the woods, I think, in 5th or 6th place with about a half mile to go. But that's when the lack of conditioning started to come in, and he got past. A guy got him right at the finish line for the 8th place finish, and Jason finished 9th. He missed going to the Nationals by about 100th of a second. And he was named the 1991 Gatorade Vermont Track and Field Athlete of the Year. He set BUHS records for the mile that stood for about 20 years. He won the state title in 2nd place in New England in the 2-mile championship, I believe. Coach Freeman would have more of that. He's a little more up on the track stats than I am. But he was great there as well as in cross country. He went on to compete for Dartmouth College, where in spite of some recurring Achilles problems, he competed in the U.S. Junior National Championships in Oregon in 1993, where he placed 6th and earned a spot on the U.S. team to compete in the Junior World Cross Country Championships in Bilbao, Spain. Since graduating from Dartmouth, Jason has a young family and a good job, and he continues to do a little running. He's competed in several marathons in Europe as well as in this country. He's finished at 2:49.26 in New York Marathon, 2:48 in Boston. In my opinion, Jason's I think he's the best long distance runner Brattleboro Union High School has had. And we've had a lot of good runners, and I've coached a few, and certainly Freeman was a pretty awesome runner. He's a humble man who always worked hard. He's able to achieve success at very high levels and in the world of running, and I think he's a worthy and great addition to the Brattleboro Union High School Athletic Hall of Fame.
Okay, so following that, well, thank you for the very kind words, Coach Dimick. Certainly appreciate it, and certainly the 4 years of high school here are some of the, as I think many people here can share some of the, like the best moments of your life, and to be part of a sports team like that with those experiences is truly phenomenal. And I think, though, what I'd like to say though is, I certainly achieved those things, and that was great, but what was really phenomenal was to be on a team with the coaches like Coach Dimick and Coach Freeman and the other coaches in the room. And I think it's really the coaches that, and the system that provides, the athletic directors in the school and everything, the coaches that spend time with the athletes day in and day out that, really make a phenomenal difference in our lives. And in particular, the cross-country team, I also have a special place in my heart for this particular sport. And one reason is because it really is very inclusive. It's a co-ed team. Nobody sits on the bench. Everybody competes in every race for the most part. And I just think that's a nice way to, so they're very more of a special kind of community type of sport. And so that brings me to the next topic here is actually Coach Freeman. So my first love was not running, as Coach Dimick pointed out. It was actually baseball and basketball and stuff like that. And I always wanted to be a basketball star like my Uncle Peter on my mother's side. And so I actually made it to the JV team, basketball team with Coach Freeman. And I spent a lot of time on the bench. And I tried really hard. And that was after my first running season where I realized I was good at running. So I gave Coach Freeman a call and I said, Coach Freeman, I'm thinking about quitting the basketball team and joining this cross-country ski team. And what he said was, he said, Jason, I really normally don't like quitters. But I think you're doing the right thing. And so that's really the moment that I think I made the commitment to this type of endurance sports. So thank you, Coach Freeman. And I should also reiterate some of the other mentors in my life, like my Uncle Stan and Uncle Everett, who Coach Freeman also coached. And I think some of the work we have to do is to get them into the Hall of Fame also. They certainly achieved more professionally than I ever did, having skied up for the U.S. ski team several different years. So I guess I should also acknowledge my mom and dad, who were very supportive, and they attended almost every race. And I certainly know that it wasn't always the case in our family that certainly Stan and Everett had maybe a different experience with parents attending races, so I really appreciate that. And in fact, Coach Dimick mentioned one of my racing strategies, which is my dad actually taught me. He was actually I think you ran one race in your life. It was the Firecracker 4-miler. And you might remember that. It took you a long time. But he taught me the trick of running fast on the downhills and getting free speed, from gravity. And I think you maybe heard that from maybe Uncle Stan or something. But that was the strategy I used in running. That's how I won the New Englands. That's how I won many races. And remarkably, a lot of people haven't figured that out. But my dad does have one athletic accomplishment that is still on my bucket list, and that is he rode his bike from Brattleboro, Vermont. And it was in 1968, around that time, from Brattleboro, Vermont to Seattle, Washington, in 30 days. So that's about 100 miles a day, roughly. So that's pretty good, actually. So it's on my list of things to do. So, as I stand here, I think I've had a lot of publicity, and this is certainly a wonderful opportunity. But I'd like to use this platform for to maybe do some good for the community. So just one small thing I'd like to do is actually make a donation to the Booster Club. So is anybody here from the Booster Club? Like to maybe somebody? Maybe you have to send a check in the mail, but my wife and I would like to make a nice donation to the Booster Club that helps support all of the athletics at the high school in Brattleboro. And they've also supported this event, that's my understanding. So I maybe challenge other people in the room to do the same. I think we have an opportunity here to give back to the sporting community, not just receive awards, but give back to the community. So thank you.
Thank you, Jason, for using your platform and your voice. We appreciate it. Our next Hall of Famer was an outstanding three-sport student athlete in high school and an historically talented ski jumper. I'd like to introduce Drew Richards, class of 1995. Introducing Drew this evening, his classmate and friend, Reggie Martell.
Testing, it works.
All right. I'm not sure who's going to cue the thing when I'm done. I guess I am.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah. One over. I once saw a minor altercation between Drew and an underclassman in Gary Blomgren's art class, an unlikely place ever. And the kid had been throwing shade at Drew all semester. Coppitude, as they say. And I'm paraphrasing. Drew at one point says, he's like, "All right, guy, like what's going on here? What's your beef?" And the kid says, "I just don't like you." And Drew says, "You don't know me, but okay. Why?" And the kid says, "Because every time I turn around, I see your face. You're in the newspaper, or you're collecting awards, or you're strutting down the hall with your blonde girlfriend, or you're driving your foreign car." It's a sob. Yeah, I know. And it's Drew Richards. It's Drew Richards, you know. And he says, "You know what, dude? You're just not all that." And Drew pauses. He takes a beat. And he says, "Oh, I can't really argue with any of that. I guess you got me figured out." And he turns around and goes back to his paper mache or whatever he was doing. The next year, the underclassman joins the varsity soccer team, and Drew's the captain. Ooh, drama, right? No, there was no drama. What the underclassmen saw was Drew was the first guy to practice, and he was the last guy to leave. He won the majority of the wind sprints, but not all of them. Leadership, high IQ, right? He got up early, but like he did plyometrics before school, and he like installed nets and stuff at his house. His parents, oh my God, put up with it. And what the underclassmen saw was Drew unequivocally just busting his ass all the time and putting in the work, and he held himself to the highest standard, always. And suffice it to say that when the underclassmen, Evan Dio, he's not, you here, Evan? No, he's not here. We came up, I was like, "Do you remember this?" And Drew was like, "What's that?" And I was like, "Yeah, this really happened." I just, like a lot of the story I made up, but just like, yeah. So Evan became like a teammate of Drew, and he came to understand that why Drew is often singled out. Because he puts in the work. He's gifted and he puts in the work. And the great irony of that, of Drew being singled out, is he's absolutely the best teammate that you can imagine. More on that later. So yes, he's naturally gifted, and he could have coasted. He could have been the best player on the team, but he did the work to cultivate his talent. And he became one of the best players in the state, and he helped Vermont win the Lions Cup, which is soccer. This is not a soccer crowd. I think Drew's the first soccer player. Nobody in here knows what the Lions Cup is. It's the shrine game for soccer. So as fall goes into, here we go. Right, so as fall moves into winter, and Drew, who was the all-star captain and MVP of the soccer team, and the captain and the #1 player on the tennis team, and what else? He won the Austin Prize, the Lunsford Prize, the Stolte Cup. After winning all these, he won all these awards, and as he moved into ski jumping, he showed us that we haven't seen anything yet. And right now, I will read off a list of Drew's ski jumping accomplishments. And actually, what happened was, I had a book a big book. It was going to be a prop, and I forgot it. But that just means that we get to the Duke North Carolina game faster. So he won tons of he won everything you could win. It's fine. Oh, but actually, so the ski jumping thing is interesting. So here's some behind the scenes dope from the selection process. Because originally the committee was thinking, well, like Drew had this very impressive career, but the jumping sort of happened like afar. Like he wasn't like a BUHS student when he did ski jumping. And Emily Pettit, who was our classmate, and she sort of championed Drew's whole campaign. When she got wind of this, and got word that maybe the board was disinclined to have this evening with Drew, you know, they're like, you know, did you see the part where he was a top 10 junior in the country in ski jumping, right? Did you see the one where he won the Eastern Championship when he was 12 years old? He was 12. He wasn't a BUHS. When he was 16 years old, he came in third at Harris Hill. When he was 17, he came in second. Did you see the part where he graduated second in his class and the first male? If he was a top 10 basketball player or baseball player and was a nanometer from being the valedictorian, would he be in the Hall of Fame? And the committee responded, well, but the jumping, I mean, it didn't happen at the BUHS. And the next part is verbatim, and grab hold of something, because this is from Emily, and apologies to the children. So here's what she wrote. He was a BUHS student. The BUHS Athletics Hall of Fame wants to exclude Drew, a three-sport BUHS student-athlete all-star who was so good at his winter sport that he had to leave BUHS for 2 months each winter to join the United States ski development team to train for the fucking Olympics. He's not a Hall of Famer at BUHS? It is self-evident that the committee was persuaded by Emily's argument. All right, we're almost done. Don't worry about it. These days, Drew is still competing. He's a cyclist, and he competed today. What did you do today? Something over there. He doesn't remember. Low blood sugar. Drink that Coke. One of the many races that Drew competed in last year was the Guilford Gravel Grinder, which is like, imagine if we all went out and got on a bike in the parking lot and took the back roads up to Marlboro College and then took the back roads back here. That is basically the Guilford Gravel Grinder. And there were 200 riders in that race, and Drew came in 9th with a time of 2 hours, 26 minutes, and 4 seconds. I was also a rider in that event. And that was my first race ever. And I trained for 4 years to compete in that race. And early on, 4 years ago, I reached out to Drew for help. Like, how does this work, right? We've known each other since middle school. And he gave me the most thoughtful, detailed, what's the word? I don't know. He wrote me these great long emails of like, oh, here's how you do it. He was pumped. He was pumped for me. So I'm talking about like, he's a great teammate. This is when like so Drew on the weekend, like he'll go out and run and do 80 miles, like for fun. And this is when I was doing 5. But he took my 5 miles as serious as he took his 80 miles. And so I hit him with questions, and for 4 years, right up to G3, which is called. And it's non-trivial. Like it's kind of, so this race is 42 miles and it's 5,000 feet of climbing. 42 miles this way, a mile this way. And if you gotta be in shape, you gotta do it. You gotta be fueled up. So So we ran the race, and I finished. And it took me 4 hours, 40 minutes. And it was one of the best feelings I've ever had in my life. Now remember, Drew finished in 2 hours and 20 minutes. So as I'm coming up the hill, the last 5K of this race is all uphill. And it was created by Satan. And as I'm just dying, I'm getting to the top. And what do I see? This guy waited for 2.5 hours after he finished to see me get over, and not just like, he wasn't like sitting at the finish line. He was before the finish line. He was like, dude, we're getting over this finish line. He's vice president of the Richards Group. He's got a family. The guy's got things to do. But that's the kind of guy he is. He's a thoughtful person, he's a kind person, a generous person, the best teammate you can possibly imagine. And he was there for me at the finish line. And it is my honor and pleasure to help induct my friend, Drew Richards, into the BUHS Athletic Hall of Fame.
Reg. Tough to follow that up. Reg was the class speaker in high school for our graduation, and whenever Reg gets in front of a mic, it's always original, it's always authentic. You know he's going to keep it real, and love you, buddy. So it was a no-brainer when I was trying to figure out who would I like to introduce me. Reg, all the way. Although, Reg, I will have to say, how come every time we get together, is you and I, a mic, and an audience? like, can we just hang out? And, you know, no, it's got to be. Reg and I played in a band together. He played in my wedding as well. Our wedding, no, my wedding. So I've got a couple thank yous I want to burn through first, and I have a couple thoughts to follow that up. But first and foremost, got to thank Bill Holiday, all the committee members and the organizers that put this on. Thank you for shining a spotlight on local athletic achievements. It's pretty impressive what you put together. I know this is a lot of work, particularly in volunteer time, and kudos to you guys, to all of you for putting this together. I think it's amazing. Got to give a shout out to Emily Pettit, as Reg mentioned. Emily was the good friend and classmate that put the time and effort into submitting a nomination for this. So I wouldn't be here without Emily. Thank you, Emily, wherever you are. I think she's in California. And if she's not, I'm confident that she's posting Facebook updates on Brattleboro high school athletics. She's a diehard supporter of everything BUHS, and she's amazing. I've got a lot of coaches to thank, and you know, these are all people that played a big role in my development, from a 10-year-old up to right through high school and beyond. I don't want to name all of them, but there's a few I want to call out, and the first is Hall of Fame member Dana Zeldakis, who I saw you. We haven't caught up yet, but I know you're here. It all started with Dana for me. He was the person that got me into the sport of ski jumping as a 10-year-old and showed me everything, the basics. What's an in-run look like? What's a takeoff? How to fly through the air? How to not fall, which, you know, part of the sport. But if you do, here's how to do it the right way. And pretty much the rest of my career I spent doing all those things, working on all those things and trying to just do them a little bit better. But it all started with Dana, and so he was really the, that's where it all began. A couple other jumping coaches Rex Bell, Chris Hastings, Larry Stone. On the soccer end of things, Coach Paul Sather. Geoff, I saw you and I saw his name. I thought maybe he was going to be here. Coach Eric Barnes, and for tennis, Doug Bramble. So these guys were all teachers and mentors in their own right, and I took something away from each one of them. And lastly, I think this table over here. Mom, Dad, no one sacrifices more for a young athlete than the parents, and you guys sacrificed a lot. And Annie, I will throw you into the mix as well, because you were dragged to every event that I ever went to, and I know you had better things to do.
A lot of bad motels.
Yes, a lot of bad motels, a lot of heavy breathing. Like, I don't sleep well with that. I'll sleep in the bathroom to get away from it. But seriously, I mean, you know, you think of those years and what you guys put in. You did a lot of schlepping. That's what I call it, schlepping. For, you know, more trips to Lake Placid than that route is burned into my brain for eternity. And I haven't actually been there in 10, 15 years, but thank you guys. I'm nothing without my family, and certainly nothing without all you guys did for me. So thank you. So ever since I got the call from Beta Sprague letting me know that I was going to be a part of this, I've been noodling over what those years at BUHS meant to me. And I can't help but think of a saying from one of my coaches that he was fond of, which is, the older I get, the better I was. Which I think is great. I think that should be the Hall of Fame slogan. We put that on all the plaques. It'd be perfect. But it also makes me think that the older I get, the more I appreciate my time at BUHS and that experience. During those years of my life, I was trying to be all things: a ski jumper, a soccer player, a tennis player, a good student. And I was trying to do all of them at a high level. I set my sights high, and I gave it everything that I had, certainly with no regrets. And when I compare what I was able to do at BUHS with what I see a lot of kids today doing, where there's sort of a tendency, a trend to specialize early on, pick a sport, what are you good at, do that, maybe to the detriment of other things. For me, the opportunity that BUHS gave me to do everything made me better at everything that I did. Hopping from one sport to another, juggling different schools, different classes, snow, turf, whatever, it made me a more dynamic athlete, and it made me a more resilient person. BUHS allowed me to be exactly what I needed to be. Not a ski jumper, not a midfielder, not a tennis player, but an athlete. That being said, it never occurred to me in high school what I asked of my teachers and coaches, teammates, friends, for the support they provided me without even knowing it. My years at BUHS were a complete circus, as Reg kind of alluded to. I would start the fall, play soccer, go to school in Brattleboro. November, transition to Lake Placid, go to a ski academy there where I could train full-time in those facilities and go to school as well. And then in April, come back home to Brattleboro so I could play tennis and finish out the school year, because that was important to me. I didn't want to go to a ski academy full-time because I loved being part of the Brattleboro scene and the sports that I could do there and everybody else. And all along the way, making detours for training camps and competitions and whatnot. As a captain and someone I knew Coach Barnes was relying on to be a leader on our soccer team, I missed games, you know, for jumping from time to time. And I showed up at the beginning of my senior year, senior tennis season, trying to reinvent my game from a two-handed backhand to a one-handed backhand, because I had shattered my collarbone a month before taking a crash at Harris Hill. So my arm was still in a sling. And yet I never once encountered resistance from any of my coaches or my teachers, my classmates, my friends. My circumstances were always accepted and my needs were understood. Any sacrifices made were my doing, and not because anybody forced me to, and I was always supported in whatever I was trying to do. And having grown up in Brattleboro and now having lived here for the past 15 years, my wife Tammy and And now my 2 kids, Haley and Caitlin. Haley, by the way, we'll throw you on the bus just for a quick second. We're driving here, down Route 30, I live in Newfane. She says, "So what is this thing all about tonight? Where are we going?" I almost said, "You'll find out," but then I said, "Oh, actually," and I went to the thing, I can't believe I'm saying this, but, so, I guess I should thank you both for being here. But I guess where I was going was, I see the same culture of support in this town today as I felt when I was in high school, which makes sense. The school is just a reflection of the town and vice versa, I suppose. But the people here really do take pride in the accomplishments of others. They build people up, they cheer them on, they celebrate in their successes. And it's a pretty unique thing that I don't think happens everywhere, but it does happen here, and it's a big part of why I couldn't imagine living anywhere else. And this event, this Hall of Fame, to me captures that sentiment perfectly. It gives us all something to take pride in. It reminds us that we follow in the footsteps of those who came before us, that we don't get there by ourselves, and that Brattleboro's produced some pretty remarkable talent. And so whether or not I deserve to be among the mix of all these people here tonight, and those that were inducted before and those that will come, I don't know, but I can tell you that it's very humbling to be acknowledged on any level, let alone as a member of this Hall of Fame. And so I just want to close by saying congratulations to all the other inductees here. I'm super proud to be part of this class, part of this community, and part of the legacy of BUHS athletics. So thanks very much.
Sorry.
It's all right, we'll enjoy it.
That's fine. Is that before or after you broke your collarbone?
Before.
Before.
It's nice and symmetrical.
Yeah.
Before.
So what are the soccer photos?
Nobody cares about
This is
soccer.
pre-internet. I have no proof of anything. I have a few black and white clippings from my folks from the Reformer.
Thank you. The next word I'm going to use, I'm not sure about Wordle, but it would get you a lot of points in Words with Friends. Our penultimate inductee this evening, a tremendously talented 3-sport high school athlete and perhaps the ultimate women's basketball player in our school's history, and an equally accomplished collegiate basketball player. It's my privilege to introduce Carrie Greenbaum, class of 1991. Introducing Carrie this evening, your high school field hockey coach, Cheryl Libardoni.
Is that gonna be, it's a little high. I'm vertically challenged. Good evening, everyone, and thanks for coming. We are here tonight to honor Carrie. Carrie was an integral part of the 3 most epic games in my high school coaching career. In 1987, we won the state, well, we were co-champs, state champions after, we had 2 10-minute overtimes. The game ended in a tie, and then they just said co-champs. Back then, they didn't break the ties. Then, to get there, we had to have 2 overtimes, and the game ended in a tie, and we had stroke-offs, where we played Burlington. We had 5 shootouts. Carrie got her penalty. Can't talk, sorry. Carrie was successful on her shot, and we won that game to get into the finals. Then we had the epic game at MAU. It was a quarterfinal game. We played a 60-minute game and then went 6 10-minute overtimes. Back then, you could not enter anybody, you could not substitute during the overtimes. Carrie played 120 minutes in that game. We won the game 1-0. So it was exceptional. They were exciting games and they were just fun to watch. And for the basketball points, Carrie had 1,420 points in her career. So for that. Her after graduation, here we go. I cut out some because it got a little long. I first got to know Carrie during her middle school years. It was fun to watch her play, whatever sport she was in that season. She was well beyond the skills of a middle school athlete. Her ability to play at her skill level, yet involve her teammates, is a testament to the kind of person she was from middle school throughout her athletic career. She always played hard, but helped her teammates improve and kept a positive attitude at all times, with a maturity that most middle school and some high school students do not have. She was patient, helpful to others, but yet still played at her level of play throughout the competitions. Those of us who were lucky enough to watch her as an athlete saw a determined young woman who excelled at all 3 sports that she participated in during her high school career. Carrie was known as a dedicated student athlete. She was a positive role model both on the field and in the classroom. She played hard and helped teammates improve and kept a positive attitude with a maturity that most students do not have. She was a coach's dream player who not only had tremendous talent, but a dedication to the process of becoming one of the best at her craft. She came to each season prepared physically as well as mentally. Her goal was to be the best player she could be, as well as supportive teammate, never making excuses and acknowledging both her successes and mistakes. She was a great leader and role model who led by example. At the end of her senior year, all the seniors were interviewed by Maggie Cassidy. Carrie's quote was not about herself or her accomplishments on the field. She stated, what I'm really going to miss is not just playing, but being with people that I've been with and even just met. I will miss the bus rides most. You just kind of hang out. The field hockey team was a fun place to be during Carrie's 4 years. She was a positive role model, enjoyed having a good time with her field hockey teammates. The team did a lot of interesting things for entertainment. Among them was a trip to Madame Cherie's. Being a relative newcomer to town, I had no idea what kind of establishment it was. I was invited, but I did not go. I once got a call from the Brattleboro police asking me if I knew where my team was. I said, I don't know. They said they were at the bleachers at the high school having a seance. These players just loved being together and having fun. Carrie was instrumental part of this team's success, both on and off the field. Everyone felt included and welcome. Carrie would say about herself, I'd like to be remembered as a hard worker. I hope that people remember me as a whole person, not just an athlete. She was the ultimate teammate and positive role model on any team that she played on. I am going to end on a quote by Emily Pettit, who also helped, she and I got together and did the nomination. When I think of Carrie Greenbaum, it is hard not to think of her accomplishments as an athlete, but my true admiration comes through watching those successes come full circle and affect the next generation. To me, a real hero can affect a healthy mindset, compassion, and empathy. And when exposed to such strides of positivity, we succeed right along with them. Emily Pettit. In California and couldn't get back, so I'm representing both of us.
Well, Coach Lib, thank you for those very kind words. I will try to keep this short because I think the game time is coming. But I would like to, most importantly, thank a lot of people that are here and people that aren't here tonight. I'd like to first thank Bill Holliday and all the other members of the Hall of Fame committee putting on this great event. We all live really busy lives, and I know that there's a lot of work that goes into an event like this, so thank you all so much. I feel extremely honored to be recognized amongst all of these amazing athletes and coaches tonight. So my congratulations to all the inductees tonight. For the athletes, we are being honored for what we love to do. Whether it was shooting hoops, like myself, running the track, jumping off of huge jumps, or chasing balls, or just being chased. In a way, it was easy for me. It was all I knew. It consumed my waking hours, my afternoons, and my evenings. And it was a distraction from challenges and awkwardness that comes with being a teenager. It required dedication, but for me, it was fun. I only had to focus on what was in front of me in the moment. For my coaches and my mentors, you are deserving of this honor. It was your direction and your guidance and your support over the years that allowed me to excel, and it created the opportunities that I needed to succeed. I can only imagine what it was like to endure hours of rowdy bus rides with us kids and the teenage dramas, and then all the long evenings that you spent just, in the gym and out on the fields. It takes a lot of time, and it truly is important. I would also like to just personally thank a lot of my coaches, Brownie Toll and Jerry Gagliardi. They spent hours coaching teams, and they also ran an amazing basketball day camp at the rec center that maybe some of you were part of. Coach Bursky, she let me shoot hoops in her gym, I think with Art Freeman. Every lunch I'd go in there, as a 7th grader and just shoot hoops. Coach Lib, who just, she expected so much of her athletes on that field. And Howard North, who took a chance on a freshman on his varsity basketball team. And there were just so many other coaches that just shared wisdom and supported me along the way. But most importantly, I want to thank my dad, Art, and my mom, Sue. They're my biggest fans. There's a saying in my family that we often use, and it goes like this: if it is worth doing, it is worth overdoing. Some of his friends, and if you know my mom and my dad, Art and Sue, when they do something, they're all in. And so when they saw how much I loved basketball and excelled at it, they were on board. My dad, he spent hours with me out in that yard, playing one-on-one, just rebounding for me, and my mom, spent more time driving me back and forth to the high school for practices. They were my biggest fans, and they sacrificed so much just every weekend driving me places, just like Drew and his family, and a lot of the other families in this room. They would drive me halfway across New England for 1 2-hour basketball practice. And I am very grateful for that. My parents' record, sorry I'm talking about you a lot, but very important to me. Their record was perfect. I really don't even need one hand to count the number of games they missed. They were my biggest fans, and they always encouraged me to do my best, whatever my best looked like that day. And they never pressured me to be someone I wasn't. They wanted me to have fun, and they wanted me to live with passion. I was a tomboy growing up, and I guess I still am, but my baggy shorts and my baseball hats, they were fine by them. And it was because of this acceptance and encouragement that I was able to excel at what I loved. And it went beyond athletics. It was the acceptance and encouragement that has given me the confidence to pursue other things in my life. And for that, I'm truly grateful. So I'm not much of a public speaker. I'm standing here alone. But from my perspective, I share this podium with privilege, and I share it with a ton of good fortune, and I share it with a lot of great women athletes, tennis team that paved the way for me, and I share it with a room full of friends and teammates and coaches. And I share with a great community. Brattleboro is a great community. And I haven't been back to town for about 5 years. And yeah, I realized this is one great community. And I just thank everyone, and I just wish for peace and
Our final, but certainly not our least, inductee into the Hall of Fame tonight. An incredibly talented three-sport athlete, including very likely the greatest softball player in BUHS history. It's my pleasure to introduce Ann Wheelock, class of 1983. Ann is not able to be here with us this evening, but she will be introduced and her award will be accepted on her behalf by her sister, Barbara Wheelock Waitakis.
I think I'm going to actually introduce her first, and then she's going to read off her speech.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry about that.
That's all right. We are very flexible, if nothing else.
Welcome, everybody, and like Terry, I'm not a public speaker, but first of all, good evening, and congratulations to all the nominees. It was a pleasure actually reading all of your bios and being able to actually look at all the great athletes that have come through our school, and couldn't be more proud to actually be here and actually meet most of you in person. Tonight I have the pleasure, as Grady just said, I get the pleasure of introducing Ann Wheelock as one of the new members of the Hall of Fame. All I can say up front about Ann is she was an athlete, and I say that with a capital A. Ann was a gym rat. She was one that if you knew her, her life revolved around sports. You knew that she was going to be at the gym practicing. Everything revolved around that. Fortunately for me, I happened to be a classmate of hers, so I had the pleasure of being able to actually see her play whenever I wasn't actually participating in my own sports. But it was such a pleasure to actually get to watch her. I was able to, she was actually a natural-born athlete, but she was also a leader, and someone her teammates looked upon on the court, the diamond, or on the field hockey field. So much so that she was actually selected as a captain for all three of those teams her senior year. Because of her natural ability, Ann was one of the rare student athletes, male or female, that played varsity for 4 years in 2 sports, those 2 being field hockey and softball, and 3 years in the third, that being basketball. And she made major contributions from the start in all 3. Within her distinguished career for the Purple and White, she helped several teams go deep into the playoffs, especially during her senior year. Her senior year included helping the field hockey team to a quarterfinal appearance, which was actually the first time the Brattleboro team had made playoffs in field hockey since 1977. She helped lead the basketball team to the semifinals that year as the number 2 seed overall in the tournament. And Unfortunately, they lost in the semifinals in double overtime. I believe it was to South Burlington, but in her last game as a Colonel, she was able to score 18 points, which is pretty impressive. But that wasn't her greatest accomplishment. Her greatest accomplishment was on the softball field, as Brady mentioned. In 1983, she helped lead the Brattleboro team to the 1983 softball championship. She pitched for 15-0 record her senior year, to include all 3 playoff games, which one included, I think it was a 1-0 shutout over Bennington in the quarterfinals. This team was also the first team to ever finish the state tournament, or actually finish the softball season as a perfect record, no losses. She finished off that season and closed out her high school athletic career by being recognized as the MVP of that great team. As Grady explained, Ann couldn't be here, but thankfully on her behalf, her sister Barbara is actually going to come up and read her introduction speech. Thank you, and all of you, welcome to all families.
I am speaking on behalf of my sister Ann, who is truly sorry that she cannot be here in person to accept this incredible honor. She has provided me with a copy of the speech that she has hoped to read herself, and I will do my best to make it as funny and as heartfelt as she would have. Ann would like to share the following. First, I would like to say an extra special thank you to Scott Nato for his remarkable and extraordinary introduction. I am overwhelmed with his kind and generous words and truly grateful for his friendship. He should be reading his own Hall of Fame speech tonight, and I'm completely confident that he will be inducted soon. To the Hall of Fame committee, thank you for your tremendous amount of work you do on behalf of all alumni of Brattleboro Union High School. Your dedication and commitment does not go unnoticed, and it is appreciated beyond words. Some of you may not know that Mr. Holliday gave me my very first coaching job more years ago than I care to share, and I will always be thankful for the faith that he placed in me. Had I realized how terrifying coaching actually is, I might have turned him down. Had he realized how many phone calls he would get from parents, I might not have had to make that decision. To my fellow inductees, wow, you are all amazing examples of what hard work, perseverance, tenacity, determination, and steadfastness to excellence can achieve. Congratulations to each one of you. When I was first notified that I had been selected for the BUHS Hall of Fame, it took me a little while to wrap my head around the significance of it. It took my phenomenal wife, Sandy, my family, and great friends like Scott to convince me of what an immense honor this really is and how valuable my experiences at BUHS were and continue to be. Mr. Freeman, I want you to know I have finally forgiven you for all the fouls that you called me over the years. Real and imagined. And Carrie, I still remember refereeing your basketball games at the rec, and I hope you have forgiven me for any fouls I might have called on you. This honor does not belong to me alone. It belongs to all of my coaches and teammates and even rivals that made me dig deeper and try harder. I was lucky enough to play sports at BUHS when talent and hard work were valued over who you knew or how much money your parents made. Okay, sorry about that. I was blessed with exceptional coaches and teachers who doubled as coaches and who saw me in things I rarely saw in myself. I was also part of a class of athletes that was second to none. The class of 1983 was filled with enough talent to ensure that the BUHS Hall of Fame will never run out of candidates. Case in point, my good friend Scott. I am hoping that I do not forget to recognize any of the influential and important coaches and teachers who shared their expertise or time or both with me over the years. I was one of the 2 girls who were in the inaugural experiment of letting AKA allowing girls to play small fry with the boys, and Bill Tarbox went all in on drafting me for his team, the Red Sox. I do not want to brag too much, but I was one of the few that year who got a hit off of Tiger Thomas, another exceptional 1983 alum. Thank you to Mr. Tarbox and Wayne Lyford, and to Mariel Jandro, and to Nancy Fink, and to Howard North for appreciating what I could bring to the table, and especially for putting up with my temper. An extra special thank you to Daryl Sawyer, a coach who brought out the best in all of us and took his teams to the pinnacle of success. While he is no longer with us, his specialness will live on for always. He is dearly missed. And I want to acknowledge and thank Cheryl and Alan Libernoni for all they did for me and for so many other athletes and students. I still miss hanging out in Mrs. Lib's office for hours on end. I never even questioned if any of us should have actually been in class instead of hanging out in the locker room and office. And if you're here, Mrs. Lib, thank you too for allowing me to play floor hockey with Mr. Lib's gym class in lieu of gymnastics. I remain fortunate to have my all-time favorite coach still in my life, though he might think otherwise, Gino Whitney, aka Mr. Whitney, coached me in both softball and basketball and showed me what true sportsmanship is all about. He taught me fairness and to welcome what I could learn from my competitors as well as from my teammates. He tried to instill in me and in others that we can learn almost as much from losing as we can from winning. Needless to say, I was a terrible student and did not appreciate those lessons until I was much older. Much older. Thank you, Mr. Whitney, for walking the walk while talking the talk and listening to us even when we said nothing at all. Thank you, too, to your prettier half, Melissa Whitney, for her endless cheering and constant support. And then finally, I want to thank some of the many teammates I was privileged enough to share at softball diamond, hockey field, and basketball court with over the years. As I said in the beginning of my speech, don't worry, I'm almost done. This honor belongs to each of them just as much as it does to me. In no particular order, and especially not in alphabetical, thank you to Heather and Heidi Nelson, Janella Quadro, Heidi Bristol, Terry McCarty, Karen Abel, Ben Budon, Barbie Barrett, Diane Kunkel, Lori Nims, Tammy Evans, Vicki Coombs, Lori Mills, Tracy Bondahorse, Angie Warden, Kim Copeland, Maria Ellis, Tina Henry, Leslie Martell, Casey Ratty, Jody Rabideau, Lori Gibson, and Teresa Kachuk. Thank you to those named and to those unnamed teammates for their contributions to the success of our teams at BUHS. I will never forget the long bus rides, the music. The 1980s had the absolute best music. The laughter or the tears. Congratulations once more to all of tonight's inductees. I remain humbled and honored to be celebrating alongside each one of you. Thank you again to the Hall of Fame committee, to Scott Nadeau for the fabulous introduction, and to my sister Barb for accepting this honor on my behalf. Have a great night. Thank you again.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have concluded our evening's festivities. So how about one more rousing round of applause? If I may be so bold, how about a standing ovation for some of the best that BHS and BUHS have ever produced? thank you very much. We're not quite done. If I could have you sit down for a moment, that'd be awesome. Editorial note, those beautiful flowers, you're welcome to take. We'd love to have you take them. Just one request, please leave the vases here. So we can use them for the 22 induction. In a moment, I'm going to bring Billie Holiday up to put a final touch on the excellence we've celebrated tonight. But before I do, thank you for being here this evening. We certainly hope to see you at the class of 22 induction ceremony, which will be hosted, I believe, right here at Post 5 this coming November. My privilege and my opportunity to participate is over, so God bless, thank you very much, and I introduce Bill Holiday. Thank you.
The programs on your table, there's been one placed out there for everybody. Take it home with you, they're for you. I'd like to thank Grady for being our MC tonight. Absolutely fabulous, Grady. You're hired in perpetuity, you didn't know that yet. This is the second Hall of Fame induction that I've sat through, and I just wanted to highlight a couple of things that I've thought about and I've been made to think about by the enormous quality of human being, not athletic, of human beings who have spoken to us in both the previous year's class and this year's. You folks have really taught me a lesson and accentuated the importance of your neighborhood. Who thinks about that until maybe something like this? The importance of your family, the support and love you get from your family. The camaraderie with teammates is more important than the statistics that have been shared here tonight. Your school as a community, you've represented your neighborhood, your family, yourself, and your school, and your town. It's amazing to hear the pride that people have in the little old town of Brattleboro. It's really there. I'm stunned by the quality of the inductees, particularly the universal humility that all have expressed. And understand this, no one gets into the Hall of Fame without somebody nominating them. As people have said tonight, there are scores of athletes who deserve to be in this Hall of Fame. Get a nomination form. Email me. I'll send one to you. Go to the Facebook page of the Brattleboro Athletic Hall of Fame. Get yourself a nomination form, and let's get people into this Hall of Fame who deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. And let's hope, and I assume they will be, of the superior quality of you folks here tonight. I thank the inductees. I thank the inductees. And the first person to point that out was last year's keynote speaker, UVM, Brattleboro Union High School graduate, my teammate, and the former athletic director of the University of Vermont, Richard Farnham. So thank you for setting one hell of a tone. Go home! Thank you.